Hi everyone. I'm going to walk through a problem now that illustrates how we would work and calculate the cost of equity for a company. The problem appears in gray in front of you. The Bouchard Company's current earning per share is $6.50. It was $4.42 5 years ago. The company pays out 40% of its earnings as dividends, and the stock sells for $36. So let's tackle part A first, which asks us to calculate the past growth rate in earnings. And they provide a hint that this is a 5-year growth period. Okay, I'm going to solve this problem a couple ways. I'm going to solve it using Excel, and then I'm going to solve at least this portion of the problem using a formula. Okay, now, here's what we know. The current earnings per share is equal to $6.50. The old earnings per share, if I put it in the right place, from 5 years ago, was $4.42, and that's given in the problem. Well, let's calculate the growth rate. Okay, now, how would we do that? We can use an Excel's rate function. Let's call that up here so we can walk through it. Okay, so I'll put this where I think you can see most of it. The number of periods is 5. I'm going to type that in rather than reference it from somewhere else. There is no payment. We're simply looking at what's the price now versus then. The present value is that cell 650. Excuse me, let me go the other way. The present value is the 442, and let's make that negative because we need to show an outflow or an inflow. So had we invested 442 5 years ago, the current value would be 650. Okay, and that gives us a growth rate of 8%. So I'll highlight it there. The rate, 5 years, there's no payment. We're simply going to make sure we have the signs and compute that rate. Now, if we want to use the formula, let me just copy that in. The formula is the future value would equal the present value times 1 plus the growth rate raised to the power of n. Okay, so if we plug in the numbers, we would say that 650 is equal to 4.42 times 1 plus g to the, raised to the power of 5, right? This is simply the present value and future value formulas that we've learned. Okay, so if we rearrange the terms, we come up with this right here. I'm going to hit F2 to show you, even though I've worked this a little bit before the demonstration. Take the 650 divided by the 442. You see how I'm just moving the terms, and then raise it to the power, if you will, of 1/5, which will give us the term inside the parentheses 1 plus g. Then if we back off 1, we'll get 8%. Okay, now one way to sort of simplify that is, and you see I'm just rearranging the terms here. If we just raise it to the power of 1/5, we come up with 108, and then we can back off the 1 from it to come up with the term for g rather than the term for 1 plus g. Okay, so that takes care of how to solve this using the formula. Now let's look at part B, which asks us what's the next expected dividend per share. Okay, so we can type in next expected dividend per share. And what do we know here? Well, we know that there's a 40% dividend rate, and the current earnings per share is $6.50. Let's calculate that. right? 40% times that 650. Let me do this the right way. The F2 key, we can go chase it down. Okay, so that tells us what the current dividend is, but then we have to take that amount times the growth rate. Oh, let me make sure I'm on the right cell. Times, and the growth rate is going to be equal to 1 plus G. We've calculated G above, 8%. Put that in. We should come up with a net expected dividend of 2.81. Let me hit the F2 so you can see the formula, right? 40% times the earnings per share represents the consistent dividends per share, and take it times 1 plus the growth rate, and you come up with the net expected equity. Okay, so if we've done that, what we have left to do is calculate the cost of equity, okay, which is R sub S. Now, rather than me formatting that in front of you, let me just copy that over from off screen. And in this one, we need to work with a formula. The formula that comes from the book appears right there, where the cost of equity is the expected rate of return, calculation of the next dividend divided by the current price, plus the expected growth rate. Okay, now I've worked this one up front, so let me show you the formula of how I reach that answer. We will take the F2 key, D14, the cell D14 represents D1, the next expected dividend, right? Divide it by $36, given in the problem right there. You can see me moving the mouse. That's the stock's current selling price, and add in the growth rate, and the growth rate is 8%. So when we work through the numbers, we calculate 15.8%. That's the answer. I'll bold this one as well, just to show you that answer as well. And there's an example of how we would calculate the cost of equity, giving this particular scenario. Thanks, everyone.